Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the following address in reply to His Excellency's speech be agreed to. May it please Your Excellency, we the members of the National Parliament of the Independent State of Papua New Guinea in Parliament assembled decide to express our loyalty to our most gracious sovereign and thank you, Your Excellency, for the speech which you have been pleased to address the Parliament. Make your
Mr. Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I move a motion. I second the motion.
Mr. Speaker, I rise on this occasion to thank the Governor General, His Excellency Bob Bofeng Dadai, for officially opening the 11th National Parliament of Papua New Guinea. I would like to extend my profound gratitude for His Excellency for his kind words of encouragement on how we should conduct ourselves and manage our country in the next 5 years. I note the key challenges His Excellency has pointed in this 11th Parliament. That includes what must be done to reform our electoral processes, building the road to 50 years and beyond of our country, building a stable and transparent government, effective implementation of our various programs, adherence to law and policy, and building a stronger economy and making sure we all have a healthy life. Mr. Speaker, I want to assure His Excellency and all our people that we are absolutely committed to our national constitution. Our collective policy and legislative conversations and actions must continue to find their relevance in our guiding principles and directives enshrined in the preambles of our constitution. We also commit to ensuring that what we do must be necessary to ensure that all our elected leaders are provided the best care as they embark on fulfilling their roles as elected leaders of our country. Your Excellency's reminders are timely. We have a great responsibility to carry out our duties with pride and absolute commitment. If we are to achieve our socio-economic development goals and improve the livelihoods of our citizens in the urban, but more particularly all the rural settings where majority of our people still reside in, our actions must never to leave anyone or any place behind. Mr. Speaker, we must apply a more innovative and practical approach to implementing our overarching plans and initiatives to bring about real change that positively impacts on the lives of our people. We must capitalize on the vast natural resources and convert those into real development outcomes, which will grow our economy and makes us self-sustaining and, more importantly, improve the lives of our people. Mr. Speaker, as we approach the 50th anniversary of our nationhood, we must work together to push to achieve the goals and aspirations as entailed by our Vision 2050 and our various national statements so that we become a middle-income earning economy by 2050. We must work towards improving our GDP and our human development indexes. We must do this in collaboration with all our stakeholders, particularly our private sector. Mr. Speaker, to bring about real change, we have embarked on important improvements in our National Executive Council focuses and our structure. We have maintained stability but also moved to ensure our renewed vision of our government, if fully captured in the makeup of our cabinet, is geared towards making our country better. We have made certain functions but create opportunities for ministers to take full responsibility for key focus areas in trade and investment and in key areas where most of our people are still engaged in, particularly agriculture. We have also built accountability processes in the determinations so ministers and bureaucrats alike have an obligation to report progress on major initiatives our government on behalf of our people undertakes. Mr. Speaker, it is necessary just to reinforce some of the things which I said when I was first given the privilege to be elected Prime Minister on the 9th of August 2022 for the 11th Parliament. Because my statement reflects the full intention of government that we are part of today and the government that I lead, and will therefore reflect in matters which will be conducted through this floor of Parliament over the course of the next 5 years. Mr. Speaker, I said then that we will begin our work by strengthening the democratic processes. We will build a resilient economy. We will build economic enabling infrastructures. We will address the natural resources, and especially how we harness the benefit from our resources. We will address business and investor confidence. We will address law and order. We are working on education and health to give quality aspect and improve accessibility to our people. And of course, we are working to strengthen all institutions of state, including the much burdensome public service. These are fundamental components of our focus, and as we work them, Mr. Speaker, I am certain that together in the next 5 years and beyond, we will start to reach the 200 billion kina economy size that we have focused for the next, for the upcoming 5 years and beyond. Mr. Speaker, the electoral reform process is placed on the forefront of our work for the immediate future. We will begin with a clear audit of the 2012 national general elections as well as 2017 and 2022 elections, and develop and map out the process of improving our processes, including the electoral roll and the conduct of the elections, which will ensure that we, once and for all, improve our voting and counting processes. A fundamental principle of our people's right for vote, and especially one person, one vote, must be achieved in this Parliament. That is a concern raised by our Governor General this morning, and we undertake in a response. We will commit to make this happen in this term of Parliament. We will also move immediately into planning and execution of the National Population Census, which will allow the electoral processes to be anchored on a correct population data. Mr. Speaker, apart from securing the budget repair and construction and reconstruction, our government will continue with building of the economic infrastructures through the Connect PNG program, through ICT development, through increased power and utility coverage of the country, and through reforms with our state-owned enterprises. These are the economic development enablers which our government will focus on especially. Infrastructure development is a key enabler to development and growth especially in agriculture, fisheries and forestry, and in the food and vegetable sector. Enabling infrastructure also provides for services in health, education and commerce to be supported. Mr. Speaker, our country is blessed with an abundance of natural resources in mining, in oil and gas, in fisheries, and in forestry and in agriculture. These natural endowments are natural assets which are to be monetized in order to finance our development costs, build technical capabilities, and provide wealth to our people who own these resources. Our government is committed to building a mechanism of benefit sharing that recognizes the need for developers to make a decent profit and reinvest in this market, but also ensure that Papua New Guinean stakeholders is able to maximize his or her benefit from the resources we own in our country. The government will see to it that Pogora, Wafigolpu, Papua LNG, Pinyang, LNG, Pasca, LNG and other projects are moved across the line in terms of the different milestones that they have all in their plans. These projects will contribute significantly to the economic growth of the nation, our provincial governments and our communities. Mr. Speaker, we must build businesses and investor confidence by maintaining a stable government with very focused policies. We have to build transparent processes in business entry, work permits and visa reforms, and a stable policy and operating environment. We have to continue to work on establishing business processes improvement, important infrastructure, and energy sustainability. There must be a willingness to engage the private sector on important matters. Taxation reforms, the process of auditing, and improvements are some important initiatives which would build confidence to the economy for investments and businesses. Mr. Speaker, before the 10th Parliament rose, we, this Parliament, authorized 611 million kina in relief assistance to ease the burdens on prices brought upon by the Russia-Ukraine war. It came in four main components: 250 million kina to remove fuel taxes from 1st of May to 30th of October, 135 million kina to lift the tax-free threshold from 12,500 to 17,500 for the remainder of 2022, and 100 million to reduce the prices of key consumer items, and another 126 million kina in other reliefs, especially removing the project fee from our parents. We are proposing in the upcoming supplementary budget a further 83.3 million kina in fuel tax relief, a further increase in tax-free threshold from 17,500 to 20,000, which will cost 60 million kina, and an additional 34 million kina to fully fund the school fee project reimbursement program. This is a relief to both private sector and government employees. The net effect is that we are putting back money into their pockets to spend on consumer goods and their essential needs. Mr. Speaker, we have now combined the Royal Papua New Guinea Constabulary and Civil Correctional Services under one ministry called the Internal Security. We'll also make sure that all offenses are prosecuted through the entire judiciary system, and we will support the different levels of the judiciary arm. We must also instill discipline back to our disciplinary forces. We will build prison industries which will enhance the skill sets of the prison population. We also must address corruption head-on, and on this matter, let me announce that we are in the process of concluding the appointment of the commissioners of ICAC. We will ensure we implement and get ICAC to work at the earliest, and we will start to implement the Proceeds of Crime Act that is available for the use, and ensure that undisclosed wealth is investigated. We'll implement the findings of the Commission of Inquiries that are outstanding to date. Mr. Speaker, speaking on other areas, in response to our Governor General's concerns, we will not leave any child behind. Every Papua New Guinea child must be educated to grade 12. We have to be innovative on how we maximize current capacities to make sure we educate all our children to year 12. In this instance, in the face of current capacity constraints, we will use the flexible open distance education mode. We have to build capacities in all our schools and universities. We must use digital technology. We want to create additional 20,000 spaces in our colleges and universities in this decade. Our government recognized that a small minority of Papua New Guineans are currently carrying the rest of the country through the taxes. We need to change this status quo. We must get more people engaged in our economy, and to start that, education gives our citizens the opportunity to participate in our economy going forward. In the health sector, Mr. Speaker, in response to our Governor General's concern, we are rallying our call to have health facilities accessible to our people. They must be within 1 hour of walking, 1 hour of boat, or 1 hour by plane, or 1 hour by truck. This means health services must be accessible to our people. This is the call and work that is upon us. COVID-19 did expose the vulnerability of our health system. Our government commit to ensure health services accessibility, Mr. Speaker, is given to our people. And I stand here today in response to our Governor General's statement, giving this major undertaking. As we work through the next 5 years, every district must have a hospital, Every province must have a provincial hospital, and our regions must have regional hospitals, as well as there must be specialist hospitals in our country. Mr. Speaker, we want to reform our public service and make it fit for purpose. It means that we must continue on the work that the Special Parliamentary Committee on Public Sector Reform has started, so that these reforms and changes are made in this term of Parliament as we prepare our nation to live beyond 50 years of nationhood. We want to ensure all public servants are working well and the leadership is appointed based on merit, as asked by our head of state earlier today. We will work to make sure that the bloated public servant up here in Wageni at the top is streamlined and right-sized. Excess public servant in Wageni be transferred to the provinces and districts where our people are. Mr. Speaker, we must deal with the land issues head-on. Land is a key component of our development. Only 3% of our land are alienated, while the rest still remain under customary ownership. Developing land with our people allows us to mobilize resources for development, and our economy will be unlocked. Looking into reform in the land sector space, and without alienating the land from our people, this will be one big task undertaken by our government. Mr. Speaker, speaking of the provinces must be given greater support to build their revenue basis, and we hope to look into this area. Let me take this time, Mr. Speaker, to encourage all members of Parliament, especially the open members, to not see provincial governments as our competition, but see provincial government as a very important stakeholder in this. They are the big post in which our house called PNG is anchored upon. We allow them to prosper, allow them to become economic basis. And some of them will talk about autonomy. Let's discuss those in a constructive manner. They should be empowered to unravel revenue options for their own greater development plans. This government will support, instead of allowing provinces to figure out things for themselves, we will work in partnership with provinces to empower them to grow and not just be collecting money for the budget support from Waigani, but raising revenue back home in their provinces themselves. Mr. Speaker, speaking on provinces, let me inform this House and our members of Parliament, Bougainville is not a province in our midst. Bougainville is a special region, a special autonomous region. Bougainville must have our attention. The national government is committed to the consultation process, and especially the WABEC roadmap. The referendum gave an opportunity for the people of the autonomous region of Bougainville to have a say on the future. The national government also, based on the WABEC roadmap, will work in the next 1 or 2 years to consult the rest of the country, and the outcomes will be brought back to the Parliament, especially the referendum result outcomes will be brought to Parliament as detailed or required by the Bougainville 2001 peace agreement. When this matter is brought to Parliament, Parliament will then have its opportunity to find a solution for this long outstanding Bougainville issue. It is may I put and propose on this note, Mr. Speaker, it is not on my note. It is our political problem. Our political solution must be found to settle the Bougainville issue once and for all. Mr. Speaker, I want to assure His Excellency, our Governor General, that this Parliament and the people of Papua New Guinea are committed to important work that stays and lays ahead of us. Our ministers have been given a target for implementation. Consequently, or subsequently, our public servants also have been given target for implementation and have been asked to commit themselves to the cause. We are in the process of developing and standardizing reporting protocols which will ensure that all established targets of our government are implemented and reported back to the executive government, as well as the executive government reporting to this House, the legislator. Mr. Speaker, all our academic institutions are important think tanks for our country and a vital source of institutional and policy advisory support. I recently met with some of them, and wherein I directed that they pull together resources and create an independent, localized, real-time database to be stationed and managed by the National Research Institute and coordinated by Department of Prime Minister and NEC. This will enable our government agencies to access relevant data and statistics crucial for planning and decision-making across all sectors. We will be taking a very collaborative approach to ensure the appropriate researches is undertaken to inform government as to the strategic actions we must take or we must undertake, especially in response to some of our country's problems that our Governor General emphasized this morning. We will further embark on improving our sector performance and management, and especially through our focus on the economic sector, as reflected in the creation of new ministries of trade and investment, oil palm, livestock and coffee and agriculture, to ensure more focus and equal attention is given to the mandate to strengthen and enhance the capabilities and outputs to grow these vital economic sectors and harness the potential of increased investment and revenue generation and participation by our rural people. Mr. Speaker, at this juncture, let me say this is a deliberate target by government to bring the 80% of our rural population who have land but are not economic productive into the productive economic space, and all our people can also participate in the cash economy as against the current place of existing in the subsistence sector. The Ministry of Trade and Investment must implement the national trade policy and work in tandem with the relevant ministries, especially in agriculture, oil palm, livestock, coffee, mining, petroleum and energy in a coherent manner, given this sector's potential to be competitive on global markets and generate revenue streams that will support our national budget. The immediate to long-term approach is to venture into value-add downstream processing to become self-sustaining, Mr. Speaker, to achieve food security, address export opportunity, and import substitution. This government realizes that the great potential in the This government realizes that great potential in the renewable sector and the importance of sustaining it to meet our domestic market obligations, food security, import substitution, and overall export to our neighboring Asian countries and our global market. Mr. Speaker, Papua New Guinea is strategically located, and if I may, the number is not on my written speech. Mr. Speaker, 110 million people in Philippines. Mr. Speaker, 260 million people in Indonesia. Mr. Speaker, 1.5 billion people in China. Mr. Speaker, 1.5 billion people in India. Mr. Speaker, 120 million people in Japan. Mr. Speaker, 60 million people in South Korea. They're drinking coffee. They have demand for oil palm. They have demand for beef right next door to us in Indonesia, the biggest Muslim nation. Yet we've been schooled and taught that we cannot grow and supply vegetables, grow and supply agricultural products, or look after our dairy and beef industry in our country. Mr. Speaker, those days are gone. We are focused to ensure we grow food in our country, supply our country, but more importantly also export outside. We are within 8 hours of reach by flight and few days of reach by ship. Our target to the Asian marketplace is big, and we ask our bilateral partners. We will be opening our trade missions in all our embassies, and all our bilateral partners are asked to partner us in that space, and our traditional partners, USA, Australia, and elsewhere, we ask them also buy PNG-made product, and in the next few years we'll be ramping up products in all our natural resources God has blessed our country with. Our agriculture and fisheries export, for instance, to nations like Indonesia and China, in particular, will export our foreign exchange earnings. These countries have comparable population for our food consumption, Mr. Speaker, as a case in point. Mr. Speaker, just to give you all some figures, the engagement in this sector will bring 82% of our people into productive commercial economy participation. Our current figures in Coffee Industry Corporation, Oil Palm Industry Corporation, Coconut Industry Corporation as of 2021 show that coffee brought in 385 million kina. Oil palm brought in 2.6 billion kina. Copra brought in 168 million kina, for example. And I just use a basic case study. If 1 million families in our country were able to generate 20,000 kina per annum from these commodities, It equates to additional 20 billion kina earnings by Papua New Guineans for our country, for economy. Mr. Speaker, why am I laboring hard on this one? Government in the last 3 years have put price support. Never before have price support been placed. We have put price support. We have put freight subsidy mechanisms. We trialed it and we will expand on this one. We also have put the SME support program in the bank. Agriculture, forestry, and fisheries, but more importantly, agriculture is the place where the 80% of our citizens can get engaged in productive participation. To complement these drives, Mr. Speaker, the amalgamation of labor and immigration ministry is intended to streamline in the business sector space as we work to ramp up business and the expansion of economy, streamline the issuance of processing, the work permits and visas under one-stop shop, arrangements to encourage business, investment and labor mobility and people-to-people exchange with our developing partners and amongst ourselves as we ramp up trade. Moving on, Mr. Speaker, we know our government's full focus on micro, small and medium enterprises. This focus and partnership, combined with the emphasis on agriculture and our rural-based industries, Mr. Speaker, has the greatest potential to move our people into participating in the commerce and economic space with us. Working with our special economic zones, working with our special regional economies, Mr. Speaker, places like Manus, places like Kikori, places like Medeng in the Maritime Park area, places like East and West Sepik, places like Oro, places like the East and West New Britain, places like from Central, the entire plains from Laroki back to Kerema. These places should be zones of special economic focuses, especially in the rural-based industries. We have been giving concessions to oil and gas and mining company. Excuse me. It's about time we look into special considerations in large-scale rural-based industries in agriculture, downstream forestry, and fisheries for value adding of our natural resources will add value to our economy, creates employment, and our country gets bigger and better. Mr. Speaker, we need to continue encouraging value adding and downstream processing of our vast timber, fisheries, oil and gas, petroleum, mineral, our rich organic agriculture produces for domestic consumption and global export market. I just want to also pause, Mr. Speaker. You Google and do your research. Israel today, Israel is half the size of Angoram. They got no water, natural running water like Sepik River. Yet they export organic, I beg your pardon, not organic, but they export fresh agricultural produce to Europe. For us here, we're right next door to the big Asian marketplace. We want to find our niche spot in the agriculture export, especially organic agriculture export to Asian market who are next door to us. We must immediately undertake a foreign policy review to develop a white paper to find solutions on how best we can develop an effective foreign service that is focused with a strategic outlook to attract foreign direct investment and developing international markets for our producers. Mr. Speaker, on this note, His Excellency reminded members of this Parliament to take your personal health seriously. I want to also encourage each and every one of us. Take your health seriously, look after your health, and let us all work for our country. I propose and I support the proposal to establish medical services within the precincts of this Parliament so that each members look after the health is taken care of. And as we take care of our health, I want us to focus on putting our country's welfare and health first and ensure we contribute to making our country better. Mr. Speaker, finally, I want to thank His Excellency Governor General for gracing us and for being with us earlier today. His presence and his words remind us of our roles and responsibilities and how we conduct ourselves in his 11th Parliament. Our government is very committed to undertaking the work in this term of Parliament, but our government secures its mandate from this House of Legislators. We have a core business. As our nation faces 50 years of nationhood, we must look at the laws that our nation is running on. We have to refurbish them, strengthen them, oil them, grease them to make sure the laws we have today are compatible for business and livelihood in 21st century Papua New Guinea, more so in the 2020s and as we present our country beyond 25 or 50 years of independence in 2025 and beyond. We are called to these offices that we hold now and to exercise responsibilities not for ourselves, but more importantly, for and on behalf of those who have elected us. Our ultimate responsibility is to them, our people. We are therefore reminded once again to be prudent, to be responsible, to be forthright in our deliberations, and to ensure that their interest is always kept at the forefront. If we have erred in the past, then it is not late to make the changes. The lessons we have learned will serve us as a stepping stone to restructure and realign our focuses in terms of meaningfully and practically implementing our socio-economic policies and the overarching plans and initiatives. That starts today and not tomorrow. And I want to leave with these few questions to our members of parliament as our nation approaches 50 years of independence in 2025. As we live through the 11th parliament, the question to fix our country is this: if it is not me, then who? If it is not us, then who? If it is not now, then when? Our people have entrusted us their responsibility. It is now our business to put PNG first, putting PNG first. PNG, Atoa, Guna. God bless Papua New Guinea. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. God bless you too.